go ahead and call the meeting to order for tonight. Sorry, it scared me a little. We can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic and one nation, for God, liberty.
Just real quick, for those that are viewing online, we changed venue to the PAC only because the middle school is having student orientation tonight, so we didn't want to be in their way, fight the traffic or anything. So, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom? Yes. Spiritu? Yes. Ms. Laird? Yes. Mr. Price?
Here. First item on the agenda is appointment of new board member. I'm just going to read through our resolution here. It is recommended that the following resolution be approved for adoption. Whereas Mrs. Violetta Ray was elected as a member of the Board of Education of the Fremont City School District for a term beginning on January 1st, 2020 and expiring on December 31st, 2023. And whereas Mrs. Violetta Ray resigned from her position as a member of the Board of Education effective July 25th, 2022, thereby creating a vacancy on the Board of Education effective July 25th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that a majority of the remaining members of the Board of Education hereby appoints Sarah Lewis as a member of the Board of Education of the Fremont City School District pursuant to RC 3313.11 to serve the balance of Mrs. Ray's unexpired term through December 31st, 2023. Be it further resolved that the treasurer of the board shall provide written notice of this resolution to the Board of Elections for Sandusky County. Could I have a motion to approve this resolution, please? Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird? Yes. Mrs. Spiritu? Yes. Mrs. Bloom? Mr. Price?
Yes, motions or resolution is approved. Megan, if you'd like to administer the oath of office to Sarah, please.
Thank you.
Well, Sarah, for right now, I'll say welcome. Thank you for your interest in being a part of the school board. Thank you for applying and coming in for the interview and for all those that came in for interviews and that applied. Our kids are in a good spot. We had 14 people apply. And all 14 were great members of our community. So our kids are in a good place when we have that many people interested in the education of our kids. That's always good. So congratulations and welcome on the school board.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. So moving on, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our special meeting held August 8th, 2022, the regular meeting held August 8th, 2022, and the special meetings held on August 9th and August 10th of 2020.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second? Second by Mrs. Bloom. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird? Yes. Mrs. Bloom? Yes. Mrs. Spiritu? Yes. Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved. All right, we do have a couple walk-on items, that are there with your agendas. We have one item being added to item 4B and one item being added to 6. We'll add those on as we get to that part of the agenda. Next, no other walk-on
No,
items?
sir, that's it, thank you.
Next, legislative report?
So I gave a report a few weeks back on the federal response to school shooting in terms of legislation, state, and then what we were going to do locally. I'd like to propose some action this evening. If we go back to the federal level, and this is the bipartisan safe communities legislation, although it was a school situation that prompted that, all throughout that it talked about communities can. I talked to Cajun Keaton, he's the treasurer of Oak Harbor Schools. We share same representative at the federal level, Marcy Kepter. He's been in contact with her office to find out when and how and some of those things will flow. Excuse me. Folks, just a second. The thought is that we put a group together to find out what the two of you have in mind with the funds, but bring in our local law enforcement. When we met with them last on security, there was no funding. So the last time we met with them, what was your wish list? Had no money available behind it. And Cajun feels pretty strongly that whatever programs are put together, if it comes with the endorsement and in collaboration with local law enforcement, since that's who's going to respond, that might help us make our case and approval of those grant applications. And also talked about that if we have a plan in place, ready to go, when those timelines and applications and so forth become available, we can hit the ground running. Because often by the time the government puts that piece of it together, the implementation piece, your deadlines are shorter than you think. And it's not a time to then reach out to our community professionals. Now, if there needs to be other folks besides law enforcement, that's fine. But it would be a session specific to security and how we might incorporate some of those federal funds. Just a thought.
No, I think that's a great idea. I would include EMS, just because sometimes they're going to be a part of anything that would go down. So yeah, and a lot of these folks were a part of our building design, but like you said, at that time, we didn't have like extra money to do something with, so that's a good idea.
And what's interesting now, you know, we're very fortunate here. We have new buildings, they gave input into it. So some of the legislation is specific to facility type things, equipment type things. But the federal legislation talked about programs. So that's a little bit different. So our law enforcement professionals may be aware of some programs in other communities or in their training that we don't have available simply because of funding. So now that there may be some money available, what's the wish list look like then? It could be very different. And, you know, in your line of work, there may be some professionals on that end too, through social workers, you know, through the court system or here through the school. So just kind of think about that. So what I'm proposing is that we schedule a session. I believe it would be executive session since we're talking about security. But if you could verify that with Dean, I'd appreciate that.
Would you have a whole board representation or just?
I think so. I think so. The last time we ran into something like this, where we were looking a little bit broader community input specific to legislation, it was ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, that President Obama put in place. This is kind of similar. Federal legislation where communities can put some plans together. So just think about think about that. And perhaps at our next meeting, or let's do this, if everybody could provide to John by email who you think might have some input on that, specific to that topic. And then we can
Absolutely.
throw out some dates and see when they might be willing to meet with us. Let's get the conversation started.
Sounds good.
And then, of course, the two of you bring what you have in mind, because I know you've been brainstorming and
Yeah, and actually, Megan and I both attended a webinar today on just that, and the September 22nd, I think, is the deadline for the second round, so we have to move pretty quickly, but we can get her done a month from today.
so do the two of you, and maybe I am jumping ahead, do the two of you already have programs and requests put together for that
Part
grant?
of the first grant asked for some proposals, but we learned today that they're very forgiving and fluid on what you'd like to do, plus there's new guidance on what's allowable. I haven't really had a chance to look at it, if you've had much to. It was just today, so I'll hopefully get that out. Maybe I can share it with you too ahead of time so you can see it, but that was kind of a quick webinar from the OFCC today, along with ODE, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was set as a webinar this morning that we watched.
So the deadline to apply is this the 22nd of September?
For the second round of the ARP, yes.
I wonder if perhaps we're talking about different segments of different
funding.
things.
Oh, we might be.
Yeah.
Because Keegan had mentioned he hadn't heard back fully from Marcy Captor just yet.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a different safety
Okay.
fund.
I know, it's a huge piece of legislation. There might be
It's
different
huge, yeah.
Yeah.
pieces of its implementation.
Well, I still think the conversation, even what we do have, because one thing we learned today with the money that we got, and this is what I'm thinking of, Chantel, we had like 50 grand for a couple buildings, Otis and Lutz were missed in the first round, so we were going to reapply to make sure they were a part of it. That's the one I'm aware of, but it's going to be significant dollars. So, and what I think we learned today is that we'll have a lot of flexibility within the parameters of the grant. I guess what I'm saying is it wouldn't have to be exactly what we put in our first round of applications, but it still has to fall within the guidelines.
Okay. And that's the federal legislation available, because there's state legislation that came available too.
And that's
Is
where I
that
need
what
to
you're-
make sure I'm talking about the right thing. You're
Okay.
absolutely right. So let me do some research on that. Yeah, there's so many initials involved, it's a little hard to keep it all
Yes, and
straight.
they came out at about the same time.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
This one has to do with ESSER funds, I think, that were allocated out last year and then this year. So it's probably different funding, yes.
Okay. Well, I'll do what I can to try to
Same here.
confirm
Yeah.
which thing is which. I'm specifically referring to the federal
Yeah.
legislation and funds
Let me check.
available.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
so our timeline then. Let's assume we are on the same page and it is the 22nd. What's that timeline look like?
Pretty quick. But I think if we had, I mean, that's a month, I mean, there's a couple weeks there, we could certainly have a productive meeting, I think, with our first responders. I think it's a great idea.
So we can try to get that.
I think we could have that
second week of
meeting.
September?
Yeah, I would think in a couple weeks, yeah.
Does that sound okay with everybody? So I think once we have some good ideas, we have some pretty experienced grant writers, I know. Denise is
Yep,
experienced with that.
for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I have for this evening.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, moving on then to the next part of the agenda for the community. First hearing of the public. If there's anyone that would like to address the board tonight, they can come up to the podium. If they'd like to. All right. We will move on to superintendent's report.
All right, I got a pretty good list tonight, so buckle up, here we go. Because it's that time, we have reached it. We're starting school again. So this Wednesday morning, I'd like to invite the board to this auditorium at 8 o'clock. Actually, we'll have breakfast served at 8, and we'll start the program in here at 8:30. I'd like to introduce you and make sure that you have a chance to be seen by the entire district. We anticipate 500 adults out here, ready to start a new school year. Mr. Price has agreed to share a few comments and greet the workforce as the board president. I'm sure some pearls of wisdom are on their way. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Did finalize today with Chief Wensinger that our new SRO is on board. It's Officer Olvera from the police department. So he will be starting soon, maybe not right at the beginning of school. There's about, Chief Wensinger has explained, he's got about 4 officers in the pipeline that are in different stages of being fully vetted. So he's a little tight on labor, but as soon as that's available, you think by the end of September, early October, we should have him every day, like we tend to. But in the meantime, we'll probably have him kind of as he's available in our building. So very excited about that. And I want to thank the board for their support and actually your foresight on that to help me make that happen. The levy committee, we do have our renewal levy this fall. The levy committee has met twice. We've got officers in place. They're looking at strategies and a plan going forward. Got another meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and I know that, I think it's Tom and Lori, right, on those, so I'll get you that information on our next meeting. So
Thank you.
I know our last meeting was during your interviews, so we couldn't have you attend, so we'll get you that as soon as possible. Some good news, Educator Rising is a program that recruits young people to be teachers in the future, and we're starting a middle school club. We received a grant to help support that effort of $73,000. So that'll help us do lots of really neat activities, maybe some trips, some enticing activities to sort of rev up our students to consider a career in education, which is a real struggle right now. It's been tough recruiting, been the toughest hiring season in my career, and I'm sure that's not new to anybody, but we're certainly feeling that pinch. So we're going to see what we can do to grow some enthusiasm for what we love to do. A little shout out to John Johansson, speaking of SROs. He kind of organized a Stuff the Cruiser event out at Walmart. He hung out in the Walmart parking lot with a sheriff cruiser, and our friends at Walmart announced over the PA, hey, there's a cruiser out in the parking lot. If you would like to buy some school supplies and stuff that cruiser, we'll get that to the students. So he was able to, just with the cooperation of Walmart, to stuff the cruiser full of school supplies that we've already delivered to the schools. So I should shout out to him for making that happen. And also our friends at Walmart, always supportive. I think I may have shot you an email. That coalition meeting that I was going to attend about the adequacy and equity A&E committee was postponed. So as soon as that gets rescheduled, I'll let you know. I just want to make sure I haven't lost sight of that. This Burchard Library is getting close, with their work is hot and heavy on the site downtown. You may not remember, but when Fremont City Schools gave that to the library for $1, that whole entire block. And a part of that agreement was that there'd be a nod to the educational history that's a part of that block. And, from 1830, I think, was maybe the first wooden schoolroom on that property. So I've been working with Pam Hoseman, the director there at the library, on the plaque and where it's going to go and what it's going to say. So I just want you to know that is happening now. And it's been a long time coming. I think that's been 10 years, 12 years since that was all sort of decided. So I just want to kind of keep the board up to speed on that. So it's finally happening. It's pretty exciting to see that come along. Let's see. The next set, and Denise and I were talking about it today, is sort of our next round of work session topics. Last year we kind of went through each department of the district. We had art and we had music and we had math. We had, so we're going to now start planning that for this year. We got some ideas maybe by department, so we can see maybe broader in each department how things are going. So more on that to come. I just want to let you know sort of that's what we're planning for that work session going forward. So we thought those were very well received and a lot of good information. So we're going to try to continue those going forward this year. Last thing I want to point out is we do something I think here that is, I think it's worth doing. It's a little confusing, I have to admit, but I think it's good for kids. We do a staggered start in our buildings. So the only students that will show up Monday, which is the first day of school here at Fremont Ross, are 9th graders. They will be the only ones here all day on Monday. At the middle school, the only students there on Monday will be the 6th graders, all the first year kids in these two buildings. Now at the elementary, we do stagger the kindergarten classes first half of the alphabet comes on the first day and the second half comes the second day. But K-5 does start on Monday and goes every day. So just so you know that, if people ask kind of what's going on there, we know it's a little tough for some families because they have one of these and one a sixth grader, and but we do believe it's the right thing for those kids to have a day in, especially if they're nervous and they don't know their way around. Get the schedule, get their lockers, get it all done before the upperclassmen show back up. So we do a staggered start. Anybody asks, that's the rationale, kind of give those kids a chance at the building all by themselves. So that's kind of my rambling report. Does anybody have anything for me today? Okay, thank you. Look forward to seeing you Wednesday morning, bright and early, for some Old Zim's vittles out here in the commons. And we'll have a great morning, kicking off our school year. All right, Mr. Price, with your permission, I'll continue on.
Yes, please.
All right. Facilities and operations. Item 1, this is our contract with the sheriff. We do have one of our SROs is with the sheriff's department. It does give us a nice coverage in the whole county too. So with your permission, we'll approve that contract this evening.
Can I get a motion to approve item 1, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Spiritu. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Laird. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you very much. Moving on to student and staff achievement. This is our handbook. I gave you a copy of that handbook last month and kind of gave you, or I guess 2 weeks ago, gave you a shot to look at that. So with your permission, we'll get those out. Just so you know too, we used to print a whole lot of paper handbooks. Now it's all online. We do print some still on paper and make them available to families, but we sort of are moving our way towards an e-version of this handbook. So that's how we roll them out.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve item 2, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you very much. A little shout out to Abby Abernathy for all her work. That's a big job to work with all the principals and make all that happen. So she does great work. Item 3 are a few resignations. Cade Long, Kristen Miner, and Rachel Widman. Item 4, we have some staff substitutes. We need it all that we can get. So if you could approve those for me this evening, that's item A. Item 4B is where our first walk-in is placed. I'd like to add to that list Jerica Martin and Allison Brownson, to Shante Flores, Ricky Gamble, and Carol Swain. On item 5 at the top of the next page, page 5, these are our supplemental contracts. Just want to draw your attention to all those tutors. Those are our focus tutors that have just done such a great job. We've been at that for a few years. Denise, how many years have we had focus tutors? Yeah, I could say, I think 1 year even before I came, 5 years ago, they kind of revived that program, and it's really been a fascinating thing. And you can imagine, it's really that principal's first turn for intervention. I mean, where we need help, who needs some help today for small group work or whatever. It just is that extra man on duty, person on duty to help our instructors. And to see that work, it's pretty special. So just want to point that out. It's one of the good things we do for kids for sure. Item 6, supplemental duty positions. This is the second walk-on. I'd like to add Marie Birkenbrecker Gonzalez on here for the supplemental duty, right with Mark Larrick and Matthew Bowman. Item 7, top of page 6, special event workers. Takes a lot of folks to make that stuff happen. So there they are. We really do appreciate their help. We had to actually shake the trees a little bit to get all that help too. Had a little trouble filling them all. We had a little panic, but we got them all filled, so excited about that. Top of the next page then continues on with athletic workers and a scoreboard operator for football. Item 8 is my last item. These are a couple status changes for Sierra Gessner and Eric Wolfacker. Approval for all those.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve items 3 through 8, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion?
Mr. Detweiler, how are we with staffing? With this, I mean, Where does this fill the gaps? How are we
Yeah,
looking?
that's a great question. I actually walked into Sue King's office about 3 o'clock today and said, Sue, if I tell them we're fully staffed, am I lying? And she says, well, not exactly lying. We have had to get creative. Here's an example with our special ed teachers. I think I mentioned that last month. That's been a real tough challenge for a lot of districts. There are districts that were looking for 10 or 12 of those intervention specialists. It's just unbelievable. And to be one of the intervention specialists, you can just about pick where you want to go too. The demand is so high. So we filled all but 2. So we've got a few people working on temporary licenses. We also have some more adults in the room then that can help us, but the licensure is covered by another person. You have to get pretty creative to cover those spaces. So there's your answer. Now on the bus thing, we're actually are fully staffed with the bus drivers, which we're very excited about. The sub list is really where, again, we'll probably be in trouble, where I may get called on again. But right now, everything but that area. We do have a couple cook positions and custodian positions that we just post. We actually, in our contract, don't post those till sort of late in the year to give all our returning workers from their summer break a chance to apply for those. So the dust is still falling on that. But those 3 areas really the ones we've been watching so carefully. The intervention specialists for our special ed population, bus drivers, and then our cooks and custodians. We had quite a few unfilled positions last spring in those support areas, but we're hoping this fall we can fill them all. Good question. That's why I asked Sue. I said, we're doing the best we can, right, Sue? And hats off to her, too. That's been a tough summer.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Of these people listed in items like 5 and 7, are they new to the district, or are these people who are?
Probably a mix of both here. I'd say most of them are returning.
Okay.
I see a lot of familiar names for me, but there are a few new faces in that group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom? Yes. Mrs. Spiritu?
Yes.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion approved. Moving on, fiscal matters, on to the report of the treasurer.
Good evening, everybody. My office is just rolling in with the new year. We've had to meet with the new staff coming in to get all their new hire paperwork set up and get them all added in for their first pay, especially for our teachers. It's a week from Friday. So my staff, it was a big, long list of them, so they were a little daunted since this is their first year entering that many new contracts for the district, but they're doing good. And then we've also been working with current staff and getting everybody set up for some new processes in our office. We're moving away from doing things with paper and sending them through the inter-office school mail to a more hopefully streamlined online system of things getting done on a computer. So we're hoping that's all. Everybody seemed excited that that was getting trained on it. They liked the new system. It's very user-friendly. So as that's all getting wrapped up in my office, and then we can just head on into doing our normal stuff. I did want to bring up tonight there's an option in our audit after it's done that you can do a formal review, and Chantel and I have talked about it a little bit about how we opted out this year, but maybe the board would like to have more of the formal process next year and the following years. So just kind of wanted to get your feedback on it. The one thing I did think is the auditors currently send us the preliminary audit report to me, and I look it over, and that's when they say, well, do you want a formal audit to go over all of this, or are you ready to just have it signed off and be finished? I could share that out ahead of time if you guys would like, and then you can review it. And if you did want a formal review, then I could request one next year and the following years. So I just kind of wanted to hear your guys' feedback if that's something you'd be interested in. Not a lot of districts do formal reviews, but it's not that we can't. So
you're talking about the exit.
yes, the
interview.
exit interview. Yeah.
So what that is in the financial world, when you get an audit, And you're either going to have your findings, your sightings, your recommendations, all those different categories. Rather than just getting the written report and you're done and off you go, you can have a discussion at the end where the examiners talk to you about what was the scope of the audit, what does the report mean? And sometimes during that interview, you can find that perhaps what they thought was a finding, you realize in discussion, oh, we actually do that. There was some miscommunication along the way.
Yeah.
And you can remedy a finding before it's even part of the formal audit. I can tell you, I understand school audits are a little bit different, but in my world, I would never miss the opportunity for an exit interview to have that discussion. But
I will say
certainly not
just,
my decision alone.
I will just say, just so you all are aware, the current auditors we have in place as the state auditors, and they do, for the most part, everything comes, they kind of say, hey, this doesn't seem right, and then we go back and forth, and there were a couple things that we went back and forth on and did change. So there is time for that before the audit's even finished. Like back in April, there was things that we found, and there's some things you can fix, and then there's some things you cannot. But we do have a little bit of time for that during the process.
That's true. Cajun did mention, though, that some of the things he felt after looking at that could have actually been remedied,
Oh, okay,
but were still listed as a finding.
okay.
So again, there's something different in emails going back and forth than whether it's a video conference or a face-to-face conversation. It's just a different level of understanding and communication. That's my recommendation, but not my decision alone.
I don't know if this is time for discussion or.
Sure,
or not.
absolutely.
I feel like when I watched the last meeting, and maybe it's helpful for the public to know that the audit contained findings, not anything of a more severe audit nature. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was recommendations and a couple,
A couple findings.
yeah. But they weren't the high level.
Okay. And since then, the office has,
Reviewed anything that
Reviewed and-
was, yeah, yeah.
thank you.
So I think a conversation would be good to be able to discuss it and have that back and
Okay.
forth conversation. It might keep from having things show up or not being get fixed.
It sounds like everybody's pretty much in agreement that that would be a good thing. So going forward, let's go ahead and request that
Okay.
interview on the exit. So we'll have that interview, and whoever is part of that audit committee can be a part of that.
Okay.
So, yep, sounds good.
And then on the subject of the audit committee, we will be setting up a meeting, Mary Alice and Tom, to go over this year's audit in the next probably couple of weeks. So be looking for an email from me.
I was on that one.
Yay! Aren't you excited?
Forgot that.
That's the other committee I'm part of.
Wait, let me rephrase what I was thinking. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. And then I do have the July financials to go over tonight for approval. You'll see the handout. I think it's maybe underneath the minutes. And then we'll just highlight some of those areas. Of course, the lovely Nexus pipeline is still just sitting out there ongoing. Lorraine County is potentially going to file an appeal, and that will hold up the whole process of us getting the payments from what they decided with their appeal. Our income tax has come in for the,
Just real quick, just so Sarah understands what that is. So the Nexus pipeline that came through, they have appealed their, and correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, they've appealed their personal property tax because it's a utility business. It's set up pretty much different than anything else. So even though they were the ones who set up what their personal property was and what they would be taxed on, they're appealing that to a lesser level. and it's been since before COVID that happened. So because of all the backup with COVID in the court system, and it's at the state level, the tax audit, is that correct? The tax?
It's with ODE, or ODE is who they file the appeal through. And then they made a fine, or they decided that they would settle at the rate being 60% or 65% of what the original value was placed upon it. And now we have one of the counties coming back and appealing that decision that the state came up with.
I think Nexus originally applied for like 30-something.
They were paying about
30-something
45%.
percent
Yes.
of what they originally were supposed to, so came back at 60.
But because one county is possibly going to appeal it, it holds it up for everyone who's involved in the state of Ohio, wherever that pipeline went through. So the good thing is AMP out here was a total reversal. This is, we're paying we're getting collection from them, basically a less percentage than what it has already been found that it should be. So what that would mean is, once it's finalized, they would owe the districts or the people that are collecting that money roughly 20% more than what they have been paying.
Over 2
So-
years, yeah.
Where AMP was the reversal, they found that everybody had to pay money back in, so we had to pay AMP back because they were paying higher than what they agreed upon, so.
Thank you, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
it's a whole mess. It's a hot mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
We've gotten our first quarter of income tax, and that's up a little bit from last year. Our real estate collection looks like it's down, but in all honesty, that's just a timing issue. Last year, the collections were done in July, or was paid out to us in July, whereas this year was paid out until August, so you won't see until next month in that year over year. For our expenses of the district, salary and benefits are a little bit down this year. Salaries are down, but benefits are actually up. We had a late invoice for a medical insurance, so it kind of made it a little bit skewed in that area. In the supplies and equipment, it looks like it's down. We received a BWC grant. One of our very wonderful people, Sherry Snyder, applied for a grant. She worked very hard on this to get us, oh geez. I don't remember, it's a piece of equipment. The state pays, I want to say the state will pay 60% and we have to come up with 40% of the funds, so. It was a lift 1 year. It's sweepers that you can stand on and kind of,
The ride-on scrubbers, yeah.
yeah. So we didn't have those, so we were able to purchase those and only have to pay a smaller portion of that. So that kind of made our supplies and equipment go down. As of right now, our current true day of cash is amazing compared to normal. But of course, that has to do with those real estate tax payments and everything hitting at a good time. So if I can get approval for the July financials.
Can I get a motion to approve item 9, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Espiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved. Moving on to board member communications and information. Lori?
Mr. Price, if I may, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I hate to interrupt, but something I forgot to ask you about, whatever the board's pleasure is, but Violetta Ray had a couple appointments. She was the district leadership team, OSBA's rep, and the student achievement liaison. Didn't know what the board's pleasure was as far as moving forward with that. I know Sarah's also currently on our CQCC as a parent rep. so that kind of complicates things a little bit too. Now we can't figure it out, but didn't know kind of what your thoughts were on that.
If I could be so bold to
Go.
request to stay on CQCC, if that works.
Okay with me?
It should, it would just be, I'm the only other
Still-
one on there, so
yeah.
with two, we can have two on any committee. 3 means it's an actual board meeting, so we can have
Okay.
2, so that fits fine.
Yeah,
in
so
there.
then we would just hunt for another parent liaison and fill that spot.
I got a few suggestions I could offer. And then
Now-
I'd be happy to explore anything else.
Yeah,
that-
another, as a district leadership team, kind of our, below the board, that's kind of the group that really vets everything that kind of makes it up this far, as learning, curriculum and everything else, kind of comes through the district leadership team. So then the Ohio School Board Association rep, she was, I think you might be the backup, Lori, on that one, right? So, and then the Student Achievement Liaison, which is another OSBA thing. I can get you more information on all that.
How about we get the information to her, take a look and see how that fits with your availability and let John know, and then can we vote on that
Yeah,
at the next
perfect.
meeting?
Yeah, give her a chance
Would
to
be
check
okay?
it out.
Sounds great.
Check it out.
Sarah will be in
Thank you, I
touch.
appreciate
Give you
it.
some time to look at it, so.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. All right, Lori?
Okay. Well, welcome, Sarah, to the board.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to having you here and working with you.
Thank you.
And Officer Johansson, as my grandson calls him, Officer Handsome.
Uh, Don't tell him that.
Oh, no, he knows. Because we asked him at the farmer's market, there's Deputy Handsome. Congratulations on him getting all the supplies. I was there when he was doing it, and I had no idea what was going on. We were just running around trying to get some for Grayson with the mad house in
Yep.
there. And otherwise, I would have taken a bunch out, but other than that, about it.
Anything else?
So I also like to congratulate Sarah and welcome to the board. And I am also looking forward to working with you. And I also like to wish this new school year good luck, all the staff and the students coming on. And I'll let you know if I'll be able to make it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm very grateful to the police chief for helping us find a way for another SRO. Appreciate our county sheriff for the one that he provides as well. And the role that they play with students, having a law enforcement officer, in a way, be an educator. That's really kind of the role. It's a really nice blend. We're very grateful for that. I want to welcome you. And if I could put you on the spot just a little bit, I think it would be really great for the community to hear what your professional background is. You look through our children's eyes from a unique lens in your professional background than what any of us do. And I think that's great for them to know what you bring.
Sure, I appreciate it. I guess first of all, just thank you to everybody for the opportunity to serve. I never thought that this is where I would be, but I'm glad for the opportunity. I've worked for the Sandusky County Juvenile Court for 24 years. Hard to believe since I'm only 30 something. But, no, but I've had the honor of working for the court for that number of years in many different capacities. When I first got hired, I took kids who had to go see my boss here for community service. So I would take them to various nonprofits in the community to fulfill their court-ordered community service requirements. Beyond that, I started working in programming to help kids and families to understand their own family dynamic to help the dynamic change. A lot of times with our kids and families, there's just a lot of communication issues. Kids don't speak parent because they've never been parents before. parents don't always speak kid language because it's been a long time since none of us have been, kids in that age. So I found myself in my career trying to bridge that gap of communication with family systems, and then also to do the same thing, even working as a liaison between the schools and parents and children. Sometimes there's unidentified gaps of service with children that maybe school systems aren't aware of, that just kind of by default, the court system becomes aware of, and to be able to work together with the school systems, whether it's teachers or administrators, to assist children. I've been pretty fortunate to be able to do that, and that's a neat place to be, especially when those aha moments all come together. So that's what I've been doing with the court for like I said, the past 24 years. So I'm excited for this new opportunity to serve our community. I view this, I said this in my interview, I view this as an extension of kind of what I do for a living.
And if I could do one more thing, I'm sorry to give you homework right away. But now that you've heard her background, I think it'll make sense why I'm going to ask if you could take a look at, it's out on the website, the presentation of the federal legislation and what they'll provide money for. So you've worked with programs specifically to that topic, and I think you'd have great input on how we can make sure that Fremont's children get some of that resources and the benefit of that, if I may.
Mission accepted. How about
Thank
that? I'm not too shabby of a grant writer myself, so.
All right,
And I have some experience with that as well.
thank you.
So, yep, my pleasure.
Sarah, now it's your turn. We got your background, so if there's anything else that since this is your first time, this is a time you can thank whatever, or if you have questions for either Megan or John that you have questions about, great time to ask for information or give them an idea of looking something up for you. So this is the time, we go through the agenda, but this is the time where you can feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. I am a question asker. I am an information seeker. So look forward to that. But just so I understand, I don't ever want to put a stamp of approval on something that maybe I don't understand fully. And I don't know, like to the public, I just look forward to the opportunity to serve. I might get a little emotional. I just want to make her proud. And my parents proud, and my community proud. I am a very proud graduate of Fremont Ross High School. And I love this community, and I think this community has a lot to offer our children and our families. And with this role, I just want to help make that happen. I'm done.
Well, I'll say welcome again. Thank you again for applying and being a part of this board. So I think the one good thing, we see all the videos out there still of crazy board meetings and crazy boards and everything. And I think we've done well. We express our own opinions. We all have our own opinions and thoughts about things, but we handle it as adults. We have discussions instead of just yelling at each other, and we come to a conclusion. But I think the biggest thing is, and I think this shows up in our community, so it shows up here on our board, we're all different. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different jobs. If everybody up here owned a cookie shop, this would be a really boring school. We'd be fed well. But beyond that, it'd be a hot mess. So I think it's great for me to see and hear other perspectives from people with different backgrounds and different jobs and everything else on what this community needs. And I think that's a great thing for our school district to have in comparison to other places. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
To our community, thank you for the donations. I think when it comes to back to school time, I think there's so many people that help out so many kids with school supplies and everything else, and Walmart and Officer Johansson and everybody else who has helped out with kids that are in need. A big thank you for that. That's a big time every year for that kind of stuff. So I made it to the football game Friday night down at Tiffin. Congratulations to our football team and all of our other sports teams. The band was already in great form on the field. Maybe I'm biased, but it seemed better than Tiffin. I think we maybe had even more people there. So for the community who supported the football team, man, support all those activities out there. All these students need our support in everything that we do, and this is a great time to do it. So just a big thank you to them. So with that, we don't have any reason to go into executive session tonight. So could I have a motion for adjournment, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Espiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion is approved. Meeting's adjourned.